everyone, and welcome to Perspectives. Our first guest today is Kristin Weis, founder and CEO of the Demand Project. What in the world is that?
I'm so glad you asked. So, the Demand Project fights human trafficking, online enticement, child sexual abuse material, and the commercial sexual exploitation of children. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is. And
Yeah.
what you're telling me, without saying, is we have a problem.
We have a big problem. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Well, let's delve into that, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
How big is the problem? And I have other questions to follow.
So, I like to tell people that we have no idea how big the problem is statistic-wise, because everybody wants to know. Like how many people are affected by this? What's the statistics in your city, in your state, in other states? Is this just happening overseas or is it happening here? And I can tell you it's happening in all 50 states. But I can't give you a number because human trafficking comes in so many forms that not everybody is collecting the right data and knows exactly what it is. They're like victims hidden in plain sight, if you will. It's a very deceptive crime. It's a crime where there's luring and grooming in the United States more than in a different country where they're taken and forced into it. It's happening more now online and through a luring and grooming process. So it takes time, and before you know it, the victim thinks that they're controlling this of some sorts, that they want this life, that they love this person that they're with. And so the numbers are astronomical, but we don't have all the numbers because it's really hard to build a case when you don't have a victim that wants to prosecute and testify against a predator, because there's not a clear line in this. Because if the person thinks that they love them, if they're maybe addicted to drugs, the sex, the life with this predator, this trafficker, and this trafficker gets them to believe that selling themselves, that them selling them is just part of the relationship, then they don't even know they're a victim of this. I know that sounds crazy, right?
That's pretty scary.
That's pretty scary, Sam. I mean, I can tell you when I go into schools and I speak to children about sexual exploitation, human trafficking, I only touch on human trafficking for a minute, and I go into online enticement and sexual exploitation because they're not going to identify as being trafficked. However, after I'm done speaking to students, I've got disclosures, kids coming up and saying, well, this happened to me. This is how it happened. I was online, somebody approached me online, they wanted me to send them pictures, they wanted to meet, I met someone, and this is what happened. So they don't identify as human trafficked victims, but after I break it down in chunks and digestible segments, they finally understand, and there's an eye-opening of, oh, this happened to somebody that I know, or it happened to me, or it's happening right now. And it could be just exploitation that could lead to human trafficking, or it could be human trafficking.
Are there organizations such as yours in other states?
Yes.
Do you communicate with one another?
We do as much as we can, yes, because if we recover a young person or any age person out of trafficking, we don't have the amount of beds and organizations, shelters that can handle the numbers that we're seeing. So we may have to facilitate resources and get the person to another state for help and for restoration services.
What you're describing to me is very scary.
Yeah.
On the surface, because as a parent and a grandparent, I'm beginning to wonder, have I missed anything?
Yeah.
What do I look for?
I would definitely say there's a good possibility that you have missed something if you have grandkids with technology and it's in your home, like if they're coming to visit and it's in your home and you're not supervising the technology, I'd gamble that they're talking to people they shouldn't be talking to. They're going to sites they shouldn't be going to. I go into schools. I just spoke in a high school last week. 600 students. Every hour I had a new class. And I would ask the kids in the class, and I said, now I'm going to tell people about this, so you have to be honest. Just raise your hand when I ask you the question, if it pertains to you. How many people in here have technology? And their ages, I think they were 15 to 17 years old. Everybody had technology. And how many people have unsupervised 24/7 access to your technology? Pretty much everybody, but maybe 3-4 people raised their hands. I even said, so you get the phone or your technology from the time you wake up in the morning until the time you go to bed at night. Like no supervision. Your parents don't know where you're going and what you're doing. And they don't, unless the parent is looking on the phone or the grandparent is looking on the phone and knows what to look for. So you've got pornography at the scroll of your fingers at any age that you give technology to that person without supervision.
Let me jump across the ditch for a minute. Are the predators that are out there dangerous? In other words, are they the kind that would come back and do the victim harm or the victim's parents harm?
The ones that are the buyers, the predators that are having sex with them, or are you talking about the ones that are selling them, or both?
Both, I suppose. I had not thought of a breakdown like that.
Because you've got, when I started looking at this 21 years ago,
It's hard to believe.
I know, 21 years ago, me and who I was married to, and who co-founded the organization with me, this was back in 2004. So Hannah's just born and Joshua's 2.5. We see a news story about a dad that had sexually assaulted his 2-year-old little girl. He videotaped the crime and then he put it online for people to watch. The internet was so young in 2004. When the last part of the story said that thousands of people logged on to watch, we wanted to know who those thousands of people were that liked what they saw. We wanted to, in that moment, we're like, what could we do about this? And where's this little girl? And what's going to happen to this dad? We couldn't track IP addresses at the time, so we never found out what happened to the little girl. We don't know what happened to the dad. We don't even know if the little girl survived the crimes against her. But who were the thousands of people that logged on to watch? And that started getting us thinking, okay, so you've got somebody that's using a child as a product. You've got what we call a trafficker, a pimp, somebody that's selling that child for gain, exploiting that child. And then you've got the demand side of it, which is why we're called the demand project. Who's creating this demand that's trying to buy these kids or lure and groom these kids? Those are two different people with a similar goal, but a little bit different as well. Because I'm going to say that the trafficker, the pimp, the person that's selling the kids are still probably sexually assaulting the kids as well. But then there's a demand out there, people that want to buy those children. So I would say...
Now, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Just a minute. What do you mean buy their children? Do you mean take them out of their family?
Just buy a sex act. So buy a child for an act that they're purchasing them for. I probably can't go into too much detail about that, can I?
I don't know.
Like, we all know what happens in sex. So if a predator or a bad guy person wants to buy a kid to have sex with them or touch them inappropriately, be with them just inappropriately, molest versus rape, they can purchase that from another human being. And they can purchase a menu of what they want to do to that human being. whether they're an infant.
You've got to be kidding. I mean, you're telling me things I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm 81 years old. I mean, I thought I knew just about everything.
Yeah. You know it in the form of prostitution, right?
I do.
Maybe. I mean, maybe what you've heard, right?
understand.
Not you. Yeah, cut. You might have known it in the past as something called prostitution, right? Ladies that might walk the streets, or people that are being
Sure.
bought, by a predator. It's shifted to where we now see it different. That pimp, that predator, that person, that trafficker is using that human being for financial gain, for another human being that wants to buy sex with them.
Begs the question, how would I recognize it? Because it could be going on next door.
It could, for sure.
How do I recognize it? And two, what do I do about it?
That's a tough thing. And you asked me, are they dangerous? That was that long spiel I went into from your question of, are they dangerous? I would say a trafficker, the person selling the human, is more dangerous than the person buying the human. Because the person selling the human, that's their product. That's how they're making their money. That's their business plan. And this human is their product for their business plan. This person buying them can go buy a kid or a person from anyone. So I don't think they're going to necessarily come after unless they create a bond with that person, that they want that person, or they want to buy that person. Like you asked, do they buy them? Well, they could, probably, if the money was right. How to identify it is very hard. That's hard because Jason, who started the organization with me, he became a sheriff's detective over child sex crimes. So he started chatting with people online as a 14-year-old girl. And then once it got to the point where they asked to meet and they wanted sex with that child or send pictures or whatever it was, he would meet them. And it was teachers, it was coaches, it was doctors, it was CEOs of companies, it was political people, it was pillars of communities, all the way down to 20-some-year-old. It's always been men. It's always been young men. Or young to old. It's always been the male people that he's interacted with. But I know that there are females that are involved in this as well that would buy a human.
So both sexes are involved.
They are, but how do you identify it? There's red flags. So what I tell people, the students themselves, is if there's a coach or a person of trust in your life that talks about having secrets, we're going to have this secret relationship. And they start talking to you and they're flattering and complimentary and gifts and different things, but it's all in secret. It's all deceptive. That's a red flag. If there's too much attention, like let's say a coach starts focusing just on your child and there's a lot of time with that child, that could be a red flag. But it also could be legit, right?
So what's a parent to do here?
You get involved in your kid's life and you talk to them. That's what I try to tell parents is, are you asking them what's going on in their life? Are you asking them about the relationships that they're in? Are you getting their phones and technology out and contracting with them, like telling them how to behave online or this will happen? Like expectations of your child, giving them the worldwide platform in their hands at such a young age. Their brains are not developed and prepared for all of the interactions they're having online and the people that are communicating with them. It's not a matter of if a person's going to ask them for inappropriate material online, it's when they're going to ask them. But is the child prepared for that? Do they know those red flags that the parents need to be talking about with their kids or grandparents? But they're heavy topics and you have to have the conversations.
I would venture social media has played a major role
Shifted the
in the
whole
growth of
thing.
numbers.
It has exploded. Like in 2019 going into 2020, 97% increase of online enticement cases through National Center for missing and exploited children because of the pandemic and everybody going online and kids being isolated and not supervised. It exploded. It's like a pond for a fisherman. You've got all of these kids online, and you've got all these predators looking for these kids. They're throwing out their fishing pole and seeing who they can get. So we have to educate our children and our parents and ourselves. I mean, we're in a place, Sam, that it is scary. It's like, it's not, but it's a preventable crime if you're communicating.
Thank you for coming in.
We could talk forever, couldn't we?
I'd love to have you back. Will you consider that?
I would love to come back because I don't think it's a one-off. We barely scratched the surface, right? If you want me to come back and we want to like deep dive in certain areas, I'd come back every month. I love to talk about this because if we're not talking about it, our kids are in jeopardy.
I thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
I'm very grateful for you coming in and helping someone as naive as I am understand the seriousness of the problem, because it's much larger than I thought.
It really is. If parents and grandparents want to go to our website at thedemandproject.org, we have some resources out there, and you can schedule a presentation and I can come and talk to you, your small group, your youth group, your school, whatever. I'm a talker.
I'm a John Wayne type. I'd like to get my hands on them boys and girls.
Yes, sir. I would like for you to as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam.
We'll talk again.
Okay.
We're going to take a short break. We'll come back with more right after this.